What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another video from the Scalar Learning channel. And today we are so excited because we are continuing this awesome series of talking about college applications, the college process, admissions, and all of that. And once again, we have Olivia back here joining us, who is our resident college advisor, college expert, and all that good stuff. We also got one of our students, Kyle, and this is very special for me too because I've actually been working with Kyle. Now he's a senior, about to go off to college next year. I've been working with Kyle since he was in 6th grade, and as I mentioned before, that's one of the coolest parts of this job is to see students all the way through this long trajectory's academic journey, and it's so fun. And now we're kind of at a massive, massive milestone because Kyle got into University of Chicago early this year, which was no small feat. We're so excited, so proud of him. And so we wanted to bring him on here to talk about his journey so it can inform you if you're also going through this process, going through specifically to apply to University of Chicago or elsewhere. So without further ado, Kyle, welcome. Thank you so much for joining. And yeah, we're really excited to have you. So let's start with the beginning, which is the standardized test prep process. And I know the first thing you had to do is make a decision as to what test you wanted to take. So tell us about that beginning process.
First, I had to choose between the SAT and the ACT, and of course, the first step was to take both just as a practice and see which one I felt more comfortable with. And you know, it was pretty clear from the beginning for me that I felt more comfortable with the SAT. That was time-wise, accuracy-wise, everything was just leaning slightly in the favor of the SAT. So for me, it was a no-brainer. So I went with the SAT, and you know, from there it was a pretty clear path on. I mean, not easy by any means, but clear that you just had to take practice tests and see where you learned. And the most, I think, of course, the most helpful part was going over my practice tests with you and Olivia and seeing where I was going wrong and how I would improve it and all the tips on how to cut down the time, because I think the time on the SAT is such an important factor in controlling and making sure you're using that time in your favor. And I think that's the part you guys were really good at helping out with, because the speed at which I was able to answer each question was like dramatically increased, and you know, that helped me do well on my first time and help me succeed, yeah.
And that's so important too. And look, you have multiple options to take the SAT, so I don't want people to hear this and feel pressured to knock it out on your first try, but that is always our goal, because it just makes, like, he just had a really nice senior year because he didn't have to worry about it. And if you would you share your score, because he knocked it out of the park on the first try, which was amazing.
Yeah, so I got a 1530 with a 790 in the math and a 740 in the English, and I think that's representative of where my comfort was. I think my English actually increased more over that time because it had more room to increase. But math, you know, I was starting at about like a 1350, maybe even like lower than that. I know my PSAT, I actually didn't do that well at all. I got like a 1210, I think. So yeah, it was that dramatic increase from taking all those practice tests, and I think that's really the most important factor. Of course, like studying beforehand and doing all that prep is really important, but there's nothing that really replaces actually taking tests and seeing what you do wrong, because that's gonna really be like, it's gonna really emulate like how you improve, because you know, if you tend to get the same kind of answers, and this is what one of your both of your like spreadsheets were. I remember you both had like kinds of questions that they fit into like categories, and I would see that I consistently got questions wrong in the same category on both English and math, and I was able to prepare for that category specifically without wasting all my time preparing for categories that I already knew I was pretty strong on and I wouldn't miss questions on. So I think that was probably the most helpful part of it.
And Olivia, can you jump in to tell people a little bit about your secret sauce for how you how you hone in on particular areas of weakness or categories. Of course, like I have my own system for math. That's what's so cool is Olivia kind of does her thing, I do my thing. We keep our worlds do not collide, they're separate. And I think it works really well that way. But tell us about, your secret sauce to some degree.
Yeah, I mean, I think Kyle, he could probably teach it himself now. It really is their strategy. It's a test of strategy and it's repetition and it's knowing how to approach certain questions. Or, if you're looking at an evidence-based question on the reading test, it's knowing that the answer before has to basically say the same thing, just slightly differently. Or how to approach the vocab questions. I tell my students, never look at the options. Go up there and put your own word in. It's probably going to be the right word. I feel like as we got closer to test day, you were guessing the word that the answer was. We'd go down and it's like, oh, there it is, great.
Yeah.
And that strategy, I think people think it takes more time, but it actually proves you understand the passage and what is being asked or said. So there are just little strategic things, and I really do think the answer is practice makes perfect. It is about repetition, and it's about having someone there just to tweak the road you're on. Like oftentimes our students, they're like, I have an idea of how to take this test, and we are there to say, yeah, now just approach it from this angle instead of this one, and you'll see scores skyrocket every time.
If we go back to, let's take somebody who's a rising senior right now, because I think you really had a very successful journey. What would be your one, maybe if you want to throw in two pieces of advice, but what would you say is the number one thing you would want somebody to know that at the beginning?
They should try and tackle it as early as possible, but not too early that it's going to be a long gap between when they're taking the test, because it really is easier to bring the test as a challenge for maybe the summer before you don't have a ton of workload for school. And that was what was easier for me. Like, I'm not getting my school math mixed with my SAT math, because those are two completely separate things. Of course, English and vocab is not as separate, but I think tackling that early before you have so many more other commitments, especially school-wise, is pretty essential.
Now let's talk about the process of choosing the University of Chicago. And I know that you and Olivia worked on that together. I'm gonna first shift it over to Olivia and then we're gonna come back to you. So Olivia, at the beginning of that process, at the beginning of that summer, because you usually start in May, right, for students, for rising seniors, what did you guys do? How did you begin to hone in on, oh, okay, University of Chicago, we're really gonna go for this school?
You're right. I generally like to start the summer or the spring right before your senior year. It's the best time to start. We get that Common App essay going over the summer. Sometimes students come in knowing, I want to apply here, I want to go here. Sometimes they have no idea and we start from scratch. So it's always very different. Even if a student is so certain, I want to know why. What is it about that school? What are the qualities you're really excited about? Is it that it's a city? Is it a large campus and student body? Do you want a campus or no campus at all? So we start with those basic questions, and oftentimes I'm challenging them because I want to make sure you really are certain this is the next 4 years of your life. Is this really what you want? And so when a student makes it very clear, like, yes, this is what I want, or if they check other options and they're like, maybe not, it's all a process. It's always evolving. I've had students decide late in the game where they're going to apply early. We were back and forth a lot about applying early. So that's I think the most exciting part is it's always evolving. It's always changing. We don't decide something and just go.
And why were you back and forth? Can you tell us about that? So you were choosing between a couple places to apply early? Yeah, tell us about that.
I mean, you could probably speak to that too. Partly strategy, I think. Is this the best choice? Do we want to apply early? Is that our best odds? Is there somewhere else I might be happier, better, whatever it is? I feel like in our case, it was really more strategic. Like, were you comfortable making that decision and being like, yes, this is it? And I feel like, what was that for you?
I think it really boiled down to, was I comfortable risking it for the biscuit? I don't know. It's kind of a, it was
such a competitive school.
It's so competitive, and I knew that I wanted a school that was academically rigorous, but that only narrows you down so far because there's so many academically rigorous schools out there nowadays. Working with Olivia, having her kind of and that's part of the essay process too, when you're actually looking, I know it's a whole nother can of worms, but when you're looking at the essay process, you kind of get an idea as you're working through it, as you learn more stuff about it, because you're never going to learn really everything about a school until you actually try and, well, of course, until you actually go to the school, but also when you're learning about the school to write an essay about it. But I think learning about the school to write an essay about it helped me realize that this is the school that I want to go to. And I did find that with another school. You know, there was one other college that I was like, yeah, I would actually really like it here too. And then at that point, it was just the decision, the flip-flopping at the end, to come back to the end was, do I want to maybe take that extra bit of risk to put, because this is another thing, the ED, the early decision, really can shift things in your favor. If you know at an earlier time, like this is what you want, it is statistically much more likely for you to get in ED. Not at every school, but I mean at almost any school. ED like helps a ton.
Okay.
And I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, I just think that something I do as well in the process is I feel like I can almost annoyingly really push when we're getting close. I'm like, take your shot. Take the risk. You have nothing to lose. Go for that. I'm more of that, I guess, romantic idea. I'm like, just take the risk. Go for the one that you feel like there's no shot. Because why not? You know, you almost, if it's realistic. And I'm also very honest in that process as well. If I think you realistically should or should not apply to a school. We also don't want to waste anyone's time, including your own, or resources. So I think that was always the fun in our process was where were you at any given session and how are you feeling? And it's how are you feeling? Where are you at today? Why are you here today? What's changed from the last session? Who have you talked to since our last session that maybe is making you think a different way? And really just, more than anything, I'm a sounding board in the process. And I often will just sort of regurgitate things you've said to me, or I'm hearing you say this, and then I just leave the decision ultimately. I feel like we said that a lot. It's like, I'm feeling this way, I know you're hearing this, now it's on you, because it's your decision. And I think having that onerous is really important.
And I remember you mentioning to me at one point, we were talking about this, that you felt like, maybe both of you, but you especially, because you have a good idea of the types of students in general. Obviously there's variation at every school, but you felt like the types of students that enjoy the University of Chicago, you're like, Kyle is that person, right? So how do you know the vibe and the feel? Is that just from experience, or what do you?
I think I've visited a lot of these schools and try to do it when I'm in the cities as well. Now I am in contact with students there. Our students go to these schools, so these schools are built on reputations, and all of these schools that our students are excited to apply to have long-standing reputations, and that comes with a type, a vibe, a legacy, whatever word you want to apply to it. Those don't change. And we talked about that a lot. Like, this is how students at U Chicago think. This is how they teach. Now, here's how they teach at Northwestern down the block, and here's how they teach at Columbia if you're thinking about there. And so you can kind of guide students, because a lot of these schools pride themselves on the way they teach. You know, you walk out of these schools with blah education, and you have to find the right one that fits your style as well.
Kyle, I want to turn it back to you, and I want to ask about something in your total journey, because this is, of course, a success story. It's a successful journey. We have an outcome that you're thrilled with, we're thrilled with. So let's take it back for students that might be younger, 9th grade, 10th grade, even 11th grade. And I want to get your take on how you made your academic choices. What classes did you choose? How did you choose to operate in even extracurriculars that maybe others can learn from those choices?
The most important thing here is just taking classes that you have a particular interest in. For me, that was language or economics or math, computer science, that area. And I think without that, you're not gonna find enough interest or drive to actually do well in the class in the first place. So if you're not really applying yourself to where you're interested in, you're gonna have a lot harder of a time than someone who is applying themselves and is passionate about what they're doing. And I think also it's important to start trying early. Of course, that's not saying to go crazy and work straight for 4 years without ever taking a break, but it really does help a lot. And once you get to that end of the 4 years, having that, like that, making the effort from ninth through 10th through 11th grade really makes a difference, because you, at the end of the day, you can't go back and change what you've done.
I think we meet a lot of parents and students who, especially when they're going into high school, ask us like, what should my kid do? What schedule should they take? What extracurriculars should they take? Or we get them going into the college application process, and it's like, I'm in every club, I'm a triple varsity athlete. I don't love any of those things, but I do them, and I'm pretty good at them. And I've taken the most competitive schedule I could, and you learn, we talked about this even with your activities list, like you learn pretty quickly, none of that, what we want is passion. What we want are the things that you were excited about and that you focused on them. I am not interested if you were in newspaper club for 6 years, but have no interest in writing or pursuing that further. It doesn't need to be on the application. It could be low ranked, but really colleges are looking at the top 3 to 5 activities, things that you're passionate about. You can only write about so much. And with, in Kyle's case, it was so clear. It's like, oh, he loves language. He loves history. He loves economics. Family values are important to him. There was so much that we could touch on that are so essential to who he is as a young man that it's like some of those things didn't matter. It didn't matter that he was, didn't do a varsity sport for 4 years. That's not what we needed. So it's unique to every individual, and I feel really strongly that kids shouldn't feel stressed to take on as many extracurriculars as they can. Just take on the things that actually excite you.
Amazing. Well, I wanted to thank both of you so much for joining. And again, Kyle, we want to wish you the best of luck. Massive congratulations. If you guys aren't familiar with University of Chicago, it is one of the most competitive schools in the world, a phenomenal place to go to school as well, to be in Chicago. As I mentioned, I was there for some time, and it's one of the coolest cities ever. So we're so excited for you. Congratulations. And yeah, do you have any last words that you want to share? Any last nuggets of wisdom?
I think the most important thing that one can do is kind of pace themselves, because it's a long process and you're probably going to be tired by the end of it. So you just got to keep pushing along, but don't try to do too much at one time.
Okay, well, there you guys have it. So I hope you guys found this video super helpful, super useful, and if you did, make sure to click that like button. And if you want to see more from the Scalar Learning channel, make sure to click subscribe. By the way, if you're interested in working with our team, in particular Olivia, in terms of college applications, college essays, all that good stuff, hit us up at tutoring@scalarlearning.com. We'd love to hear from you. And if you're interested in working with any of our awesome tutors, feel free to hit us up as well. We would be happy to work with you and help you out with whatever you need. We got virtual and in-person tutors all over the country. Thank you guys so much for joining, and I'll see you in the next video. Take it easy.